All right, hey, thanks for tuning in for the Wednesday live stream where I'll be hacking on PHP I'm going to pick up a bug that I left off last week that kind of just went down the rabbit hole. Learned a lot of cool things about PHP stand, but I didn't solve this issue. The problem we have is we have these return type extensions to make the entity system with storage work great, but the Achilles heel is if you go ahead and use a var and you type it out yourself instead of letting the default type system work, then it all falls apart. And there's no way to really influence PHP stand to say, hey, I know it said this, but actually it should be this instead. With the PHPDoc the resolution, resolving resolution. So the workaround I think is just we can't do any tricks here. We just got to provide the stubs, and if somebody decides to type, to strictly type out their to reference a specific instance of, it needs to have a stub file. So I'm going to turn this into finding all the things with custom storage types and stub it out. So let's go ahead and go there. And it's just going to be something that we'll have to chase. If somebody types something out and it doesn't work as expected. So I'm on this branch. Let's actually just go ahead and make an issue. Make an issue. Let's go back to the pull request. It's not loading. Here we go. I don't know if I should make an issue. Let's just do it here. I already have the branch checked out from last week because I haven't worked on PHP stand since, or PHP stand Drupal rather. So let's go ahead and see. Did I make an issue about entity data? This entity data fixed. So one thing I did propose is that we shouldn't be returning null. We should be providing some kind of baseline here. I also created some issues because I did submit PHP stand Drupal for the Google Summer of Code project or initiative, whatever. Actually, don't know what you would call it for the Drupal work. All right, so I put this in here already. So let's go ahead and revert this. All of this. I want to just check. I don't want to just check everything out just in case. But this, this node type resolver extension with the PHPDoc, that was a bad turn. It worked with PHPDoc, but not instance of, so we're just going to avoid that. Let's see, we've got the test. Okay, I've added the test coverage, so let's do that. Let's keep that around. And execute, remove, I put all the test code from the pull request into its own test area. And now let's go ahead and actually, let's get back to square one here and undo some of the stuff the pull request has done. All right, so it adds entity storage helper, which I'm deleting, because we're going to go just create some stub files and this entity storage dynamic source type, entity storage, the return type extension. So this code was added if not instance of entity storage type. Let's go ahead, we'll bring that back. And let's put this back in here for get query. We don't need to abstract it out necessarily. And we'll delete this method. All right, so that should bring us back to square one. And let's run the tests. We'll run the entity query one and just make sure that it's failing in a way that we expect. All right, so it is failing in ways that we expect. There's on line 33 of bug N85 query 33. So that's the issue here, is it has this node storage, this typing. So let's see how easily we can fix this. So let's first try just stubbing out node storage interface. Oh man, that's going to be content entity storage interface. We're going to have to, let's just start. We'll go down the rabbit hole. I worked on these stubs offline when I was at Florida Drupal Camp, so I didn't really walk through it. So I guess this will be a trip down the this process. So stub files are basically just empty classes that allow you to fix PHPDocs and return types. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to create, and I'm trying to mimic the folders to match the namespacing. So in here, just create a directory called node and a new file called node interface.stub. And the idea of calling it .stub is to prevent PHPStorm from indexing it, but I think it is now. Or it's indexing it, but I wish it wasn't in certain ways. And when we have a stub, all we need to do is copy the bare minimum. I don't think we even need to copy. Yeah, we don't need to copy the contents either. We just need the stub to exist. So like if we look at this here, like I don't have to define the methods in the stub. It's just, it needs to exist. And it actually just needed to exist for this link item. So you can see here, it has no methods, no overrides. It just provides some class-based properties. So that's what we're going to do here. Node interface. And what did I say was failing? Line 33. So 33, we expect node storage get query. No, darn. That's going to be hard. Because typing of, shoot. This may not work because we're using an internal type to handle the storage, because the query is always the same. So let's look at this. Let's go query interface, entity query interface. Oh, workspaces has its own query, little SQL query. Oh man, maybe this won't work. So entity query base, the query instance. All right, let's not focus on the query, but let's do the return type. Let's start there. Let's start with this one. This one I know we can fix with stubs. The entity query, I'm not sure about. So let's focus on winning something. So we can see we had failures at line 17. Oh, so 10 passed. Well, that's interesting. Oh, wait a second. It didn't even run. Wait, yeah, it did. 12. Oh, what? Wait, how did that? Okay, so that worked. But on line 17, expected. All right, I don't know how this instance of worked. And now maybe I shouldn't have deleted that PHPDoc thing. Wait, why did that pass? I'm so confused now. All right. Well, I know line 11 is this load, this dynamic return type extension. That's not it. Entity query. What is it here? Entity type manager. That's the get storage. No, we want where is it? Container entity storage. Oh, that's right here. So we fall back to the default return type. So let's go. I'm so confused on how this is, why this is passing, because that should break the same way as this. It's line 10. Let's debug that. Now I want this to get fixed because this unblocks my next plans, which is to provide a drush command to dump configuration for you. So color type. Yeah, it figured out the color type correctly. So hold on. That instance of worked. Oh, let's see. Code, history, tools. No. Let's see if I can local history, show history. So if you didn't know, this is one nice thing about PHP Storm is it has a history and it can actually tell you when you've made changes and the tests fail. Deleting files. That wasn't it. Entity data. Oh, no. Go back to the history. Shoot. Deleting files. Deleted one file. Entity type. I want to put this back. Can I do that? So show history, deleting files. Let's revert that selection and add them. All right, so this file I'm adding implements type node resolver extension, and it resolves the PHPDoc name. So it should hopefully fix term storage interface, because we'll know that's an instance of, oh, it won't know the entity type though. Well, let's just get a start. We'll get a start here. The test was failing that the result was entity interface. We expected term. So let's go just rerun this, rerun the fail. Actually, I should rerun the whole thing just to see. All right, expected and actual. So we got the breakpoint there. Let's go and debug the first line, which test was that? Line 17. So yeah, this create. So in the debug, our debugger is, where's our debugger? So string name, PHP send testing mix. Let's just skip over to here. My other fear is that this might add a huge hit to performance. So color type, content entity storage. This is node storage. So it's still parsing over all this part. Let's break out of there. All right, string name, term storage interface. This is where we're at. So it's a return type is hooking in after process. So it read this line. Now it's reading its comments to figure out what the next step is. So we get content entity storage. It's going to return an empty entity type ID. And that's going to cause it to fail. And we're back at the blocks of term storage, content entity storage. And the entity ID is empty. So let's try something. Shoot. Again, kind of back at the point where we don't know what the original variable, what the variable was when this is hit, because we can't then say like, oh, actually it was originally this. Like we can't like enhance it that way. Nor in the controller. And hinting this is where stubbing the storage would work. Oh man, now I'm going back to where I was last week. I just want to see something. So using stubs, we can fix create, load, load unchanged, all of those. But the query is going to be near impossible. So term storage, content entity storage type, blank entity type ID. Oh, that didn't even hit. Oh, because we are here. Let's do debug. Is what we're doing is we're it's a certain object type, but we're basically telling PHPSend it's a different kind of object type. And that's where it breaks down. And I don't know if there's a better way to do this. And this could be just showing that we picked the wrong way to do it, but it was the best and easiest way. That's not even being caught. Entity storage, create, load. Oh, because I wonder if we're hitting this line here, where there's the type is null because we can't get the entity type ID. Then call, creates, let's put the breakpoint here at caller type. So that's the node code, node. Oh boy. Let's skip that. I think this is where it's gonna show up. All right. So type is null because we have Any type ID. What is it scanning? It's scanning more than I expected. All right, here we go. So we return that. Resolved. Now we're back here. Okay, because entity type ID is empty. So caller types, super types, class name, current ancestor, cached interfaces. That's just all static classes. The method call and var name. When we resolve the variable, the caller type, we get back the generic version. So I guess. So property tags, yeah, we're there. So we do get query. And caller type is instance of. And that's why it fails, because we're not an instance of that type. So it makes me wonder is if this is wrong here. Get class name, get subtracted type. We don't care actually if it matches our types for this. What we could do is, so if it's all right. So again, this is one where maybe this needs to get spun out. But if, so return type, null. All right, not going to refactor everything yet. So return, if caller type is instance of, what it should be is actually, should mimic this story, this right here. Return type, caller type. Instance of, so we just wrap object type and provide the entity type ID, but we don't really need that in this get query because the query doesn't care about the entity type ID. That's later on. So what we could say is if let's copy this line. Oop, let's not do that. Let's not even worry about config storage yet. Let's just prove this here. So basically, let's say if content entity storage type is super of caller type, return it as a content entity query type, because we don't care about the entity class. That's the bug that's happening, is we don't know what entity class we're dealing with when we deal with these properties here. And that can be okay because these we can fix with stubs, where here we can fix using by just checking if the caller type is a instance of, which would allow us to get rid of this. So let's comment out that PHPDoc extension. I don't want to have the PHPDoc extension because it just feels very problematic in the future, more so than anything we're doing. So let's go Drupal entity data. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the config one. So basically, if it's a content entity type, we return content entity query type, or it's just the default return type. And really, we duplicate this return type here, but I guess that doesn't really matter. So we're just gonna encapsulate this, which means that this could use like its own return type extension probably, because it's very different than the other ones, than the other logic in here. So let's run our debugger again. Probably could just run the test to see, but let's just dive into debugging. And I'm hoping to nail this, because then I want to open a new GitHub CI job, which scans Drupal core at level 1, which right now in Drupal 10.0 uses PHP stand level 0. So I want to get to 1 to try to find ways that we can improve analyzing Drupal core. So again, resolved, what's this for? Term storage, object type, term storage interface. Great. So this is the bug, well, quote unquote bug, is we know the class name, but it wasn't hinted at our internal types. So we need our code to fix that. Line 17. Well, that's not what you want. Energy storage line 17. Oh, we're at the create. Yeah, that's a whole other problem that we'll get to. So I want to get rid of this return type extension. I know I added it back, but I don't think it's a good idea. So just back away from it. Any dynamic return type, entity storage. Let's get out of here and go to the query test. Let's run it and see what happens and see if this fixes entity queries by relying less on the internal type and more about the implementation of it. And yes, it passes. Great. So this bug was failing beforehand, and we can prove that by, I would have to undo a lot of code here. But by moving this to check on the instance of and return the entity query type, we fix that. Now the problem will be, again, if somebody ends up type hinting their query object, which at that point, I don't know what we can do. And just continuously be a problem. But let's see, entity query, config, content, entity query, count type. Okay, so that seems to be working just fine. Entity storage dynamic return type. Drupal static entity query return type, entity query. Storage type. That's something we're not covering. So let's go extend this test here. Okay, so this is already tested elsewhere. So we don't need that. What we need to test is that type hinting works. So let's try something else. Do we, wait 1 second. Where do we have this? Entity query, entity query execute. Okay, so we do have entity query here. Let's just quick. All right, so we have the entity query. What we could say there is we get entity query interface, but what if we did a type hint of, what does this do? Prepare. Okay, this modifies the query workspaces. Let's type hint it to this reference. Type node query. Rename this really quick. So if we run the test, we're going to create even more failures, I bet. Line 57. In line 65. 50. Wait. So 57 is that. 65. That's here. But the count is preserved because that, when we have a count that we encounter, we don't care about what's being called. We just say it's a count. So execute default return type. So in here, it's any query type. If it's a config entity query type, let's, what was it? So what was 65? 65 is the same as 56, just not chained. Okay. So let's just debug there. The original issue was just on entity query, but I realized it broke other things. So let's see. Var type, content entity query. So let's go to where it does not pass. Let's do the default return type. I don't care about the resolved anymore. Okay. Return type, union type of array or integer. That's the default for execute. Because we don't know what the var type is object type SQL query, which is what we type hinted before. And we're at the same problem where we have no idea where it came from. Cached parent, query base. And so this is all cached. The subtracted type is null. The class reflection is null. And I think the instance of works because it preserves the type. I'm trying to think of what to do. I guess solve one problem at a time. That's a whole different kind of problem. The main problem here is entity storage type and prevent inferring entity query execute return type. So let's just go back. entity query. That's the type. Let's go run this test. And if it passes, it passes. And people have to stop type hinting their query, I guess, if that is a thing. All right, so this passes. Now I've got the entity dynamic return type. And we have errors at line 17. So instance of this must be, because we extend object type, the instance of must work. I feel like this wasn't passing before, but it is now. Let's see, I want to read. Seems the correct type, but the type hint, get method call, sure why. All right. So now we get to the point where we need to stub entity storages. So let's go ahead and rename this typed node storage. So entity query type node storage goes here. So if we run it, we should get 6 failures now, because 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So let's implement this. So node storage. No, that's not the right area. That's not the right area either. Function create. So we should be able to just do storage node interface. So if we quick go update the extension.neon to our new stub file, there's gonna be so many. We have stubs, Drupal, Drupal node storage interface dot stub. I have this error PHP completion on hellj.neon. Okay. So let's rerun the fails. And I expect this to fail because it's not going to want node. It's going to want to be node interface there. 17. That's not the case. Wait. Hold on. Node storage. Let's expected, but I updated the stubs to use. Let's make sure I didn't screw that up. Where's stubs? Where are the stub files? Let's do copy from content root. Yep. Oop. It's the same. Run it. Are we breaking it? Oh, this is such a mess. It seemed so cool when we first got it in, because it's like, hey, look, we can have proper analysis of the entity storage system. But now you can't, because if you type into anything, it's busted. Let's try something out. I'm gonna also then I'm gonna copy this in the nodes. Wait, no, it's not even working that way because I did a type into the node storage interface with create. Is the return type? Yeah, return array string mixed. Let's type out that as well. Actually, this shouldn't be working because this should be upset about the fact that I don't have all the dependent classes. Because that's what happened when I worked on all the fields, is it got angry at me when I didn't have all the dependencies. So let's try that. Core directory entity, new file, that's stub. Now it has a stub file in place. Copy from content. I've been trying to keep it alphabetical. But now we gotta also implement entity storage interface and translatable revisionable storage interface. But why isn't this failing? Because when I worked on the field types, it failed due to stubs not having all their dependencies in place, all the classes they used. Which is why I feel like something's not working right. But let's just add all these stubs in place. Oh, come on. Stub. You know, it's kind of funny. I was like, oh man, Laravel is magical. But we have, don't worry, we have Drupal is just as egregious. So translatable storage interface stub. So we got there. Now we need the revisionable storage interface. All those are in place. Now we got a content entity storage interface. Revisionable. Translatable. And the other translatable. Just work. What and why? bug 355. Entity storage, line 17. Why is this not picking up my stub files? What am I doing here? Field types test. Entity, right? I'm running the entity dynamic return type test. My field types test. I'm not doing anything different. Just gather asset types, test file asserts, test file asserts. Type in inference test. This is the exact same thing. So it's failing on create. Let's look down here, I guess. Just debug it on that line. The stub file should be loaded. So let's also dig into PHP stand there. Extension, source. Oop. Should be under locator, reflection. Locator. Or not. Well, here we go. Type object type node. All right. What's the color type? So color type's not busted. I must be going through the file, user storage. Oh boy. Well, this would be where it's. That should be where it ends up. Because the color type won't be of our internal type. Yeah, color type, node storage interface. All right. Methods. Node storage interface. Create. Called on type, unresolved method. Called on type, method reflection. Parameter reflection, type array type. Key mixed. Parser. Template. PHP parameter types, values. Doc return type, entity interface. Why is it not reading our item? One second. Reflection provider. Stub. Source locator. Source stubber. Nope. Source locator. Fetch node. Optimize directory source. PSR. Single file source. Reflector. Source stubber. Source locator. It's in here somewhere. Stub. Source stubber. Namespace. That's just a namespace. Array key. Source locator. Stub data. PHP stub map. No. Better reflection provider. PHP storm. No. We don't want the PHP reflection source stubber. Is that what we want? Generate class stub. As enum class reflection. Let's try this. Add class constants, create stub data. Although I wonder if it's because I'm trying to stub an interface. Object type. This is not what I was hoping for. Let's go back to node storage and create the file. Which then means that I need to copy in so much other stuff. Copy the content root. Node. Just run the test again. See. I feel like I might need to just go on a fresh branch as well, since this is just so muddied. Yeah, I can't get this to work. Why is it not even working with the stub? If I were to comment out this complex data one, let's go to the test. All right, so if I comment out that stub one, it will, something in here should error because a class is missing that it requires. Error, yeah, error. Data provider is invalid. Oh, that's a different error that randomly happens when I change tests. Now this didn't error either. What in the world is going on, and why is everything passing? What version of PHPStan do I have? 1.4.6. Let's go PHPStan. Yeah, everything passed. What could have happened in the time that a release, like, not 4.6. From Feb 6, which is before Drupal Camp Florida. Template type, fix intersecting, fix 75, analyze, fix level 9, cast PHPDoc, fix, update, generic stuff for date period, resolve remaining, support array filter, fix reporting non-existent is set, fix interaction between template type, resolving is set, null coalescence, memory limit, pass verbosity to workers, move collecting errors from error handler, from analyzer to file analyzer, parallel runs, memory management trick from Laravel. This is a pretty cool idea as well. If you haven't seen it, Laravel like pre-allocates some memory ahead of time. Let's see if I can get the image to load. So it reserves 10 kilobytes of memory, so that way if it has a memory limit, it can purge that data and then report the error, which is pretty neat. But I don't see anything in here about stub. Add missing stubs there. Generate generic stub. Do not reanalyze stubs in every run. But that shouldn't matter in tests. Stub. Result cache manager. Analyze application. Let's make sure that's not happening. So vendor, PHP stand. Where is this? Source analyzer, result cache, source analyzer, result cache. What release was this in? Source. Oh, result cache and result cache manager. This line 220. So yeah, so this stub files. So if not array key exists there, analyze application, project stub files. I don't remember how the test quite builds. Assert files, assert same, process file. That's right, the process is the nodes. It's the file helper, get additional, create scope factory, create scope contest, resolver, node scope resolver, container, PHP stub PHPDoc provider. That's not it. PHP version, PHPDoc inheritance resolver. Well, that's new. File helper, dependency injection. This is feeling like a rabbit hole and a failure right now. Cert type, variable certainty, expected, actual type, args1. Let's see, it's gotta, this is cert. Resolver, this get additional analyzed resolver. Merge file. That's set analyzed files. Okay, normalized path. Over type specifier. So we never really get to result cache is full analysis, project stub files. Do not reanalyze stubs in every run. Let's just start there, I guess. I don't even know what I'm looking at because now I've gone down another tangent. All right, so it's not even being read, but it's working because the tests are passing. The field types. Well, actually, that I'm not feeling very confident right now that things are working as they should. So I want to make sure I get an actual failure here. Yeah, that's not good. I commented out the string item type, the URI, the UUID. Let's run the test. Something's not right. Something's not. What the hell? Okay. Something is broken. And I'm not sure what is going on anymore. So what in the world? Because if I'm not registering the stubs, how would it be working at all? Where is this used? Stub files. The stub files, we had the breakpoint there. It didn't do anything. Command. Invalid. What do you mean it's invalid? Project stub files, command helper. Stub files added multiple times. For each stub file. As analyze exclude stub. Oh, that just removes the stub files that are excluded. PHPDoc. Stub files. Parse file. Stub PHPDoc provider. So could that be it? Because I'm not providing enough return types? No. For this each get stub files. Let's do stub files there. Stub files locator. There's the stub files. Stub file validator. Here we go. All right. I don't know what is going on or why this is broken, but I need to figure out what the hell I did. Field type, debug. Let's debug this again. Extensions 0. Subfile extension tag, subfiles extension. You know, that would be nice, is to convert all the stub files to an extension so it's dynamically get files. That would be I'll make a note of that. Leverage the file extension to make defining stub files more manageable. We can use this to automatically return all of these stub files and stubs instead of manually registering them. All right. Well, we know we have no extension, so I'm just going to skip that. Let's press play. Type. Field types. Additional config files trait. PHP unit. Extension. And that pulls in our extension. Otherwise, it wouldn't be working. What? How is this working? Scope this process file. This process file. I'm going to debug right in here because this test is reflection provider, memoize, provider, chain, provider, reflection provider, the runtime, PHP stock stub provider, stub PHPDoc provider, parser container stub files. Stub files. Those are all inside PHP stand. Then inside here, node storage interface. So that has everything in there. Now, if I were to comment out link item, extension, let's comment out these two link stubs. The breakpoint after the reflection provider is created. Reflection provider, it's better reflection. Stub, this should be 54, which it is. If I play it through, it should fail on the link test. But it absolutely is not. Oh, there it is. Okay. Field types 32. Error. All right. So I guess it is working. Let's run it again. Without the interface and just link item. It didn't need me to provide the stub interface. And I swear this made me before. Well, I guess I didn't need those after all. All those extra interfaces. All right, let's get back to this entity storage, node storage, where we override road create. We're specifying it's going to return node interface. The param of value should be string mixed. Now, I'm going to copy this again to node storage. And run this test. Which 17, 18, and 19 should pass. Or at least 18 and 19 will fail. 17, expected node, got entity interface. It should at least be node interface. So let's go to type entity storage. Multiple, if type is equal to null, we're going to debug this. Again, reflection providers, better reflection provider. Stub doc, we got our 56 of them. Sure, it's just stub files. What class is this? PHP stand. Let's go to stub doc provider, get stub files. Let's get stub files. Initialize known elements. Let's initialize for each. This gets stub files. Stub files. Initialize known elements, parse file. I'm going to put that breakpoint there, and let's play for each. Right. Let's do a stub, or what is it? String contains haystack of node storage, and the needle. Nope, I always get it confused. So the needle, or the haystack, is stub file, and the needle is stub. All right, stub file node storage interface. Nodes namespace name. Statements interface. Statements class method. Name is create. Attributes. Rather statements return type. Return type is Drupal node interface, the params. All right. So let's see how this gets parsed. That's name, node storage interface. It's class map. There's no document. It's method map. For each statement. Wait. If doc comment is equal to null, it's not. So we have here our document comment we stubbed out. This known doc comments. Yep. Shoot. Let's go to this known methods dot comments. If we go to the bottom, notice there's interface create, parameter names, create values, but it doesn't do return types. Possibly. Node storage stub. Oh, wait a second. Let's go to PHP stand. Whoa, that's a new homepage. Hey, look at that. We're not listed in the text, but the Drupal picture's there. Documentation, stub files. Okay, you might encounter a PHPDoc that's imprecise. You write stub files, it's like source code, but only reads PHPDocs from it. Okay, so it only reads PHPDocs. So this return type here does nothing. They're not a replacement for symbols. What about the analysis? Don't need to be added to the list of analyzed paths. Stub files need to be added this way. So, stub files are analyzed independently from the rest of your code base. This is the way of tackling. That's why all symbols as empty shells. Mock object, mock builder. PHP stand param, PHP stand return. Maybe that's what I need to do. Why the stubs PHP stand uses itself, or by the stubs from the document extension? PHP stand is only interested in the PHP docs. All right, well, PDO statement. What's implements reflection parameter, array object, return bool. So this has returns in it. entity manager. Let's see here. So it has PHP stand return. Let's try this. Let's see if that fixes it. Nope. Are we even getting called here? Because nothing's... Where's the early return type? Let's just skip over to this. Known methods, parameter names. Known classes, method map. Let's go to the method map. Node storage interface. That did not get. Node storage, create, values. I'm over this now. Is method supported? So get class. All right, let's see. Where are we? Method call var. Variable is node storage. But we're in the, what test are we in? Test source. Entity dynamic return type test. Type entity dynamic return type test. That means we're in entity storage. Okay, so node storage, we don't care about that one. We need to get through this parsing. All right. Name. Wait. Whoa. Get storage. Method call var. Name. Create. Oh, here we go. All right. So now we're in create. But is it in this part? Color type is content entity storage type. Yeah, we need to. Color type. Yeah. Node. I think the problem is this test is loading up all of these along the way. So let's go ahead and re-debug it. Because that's a data provider. So the data provider actually runs before the individual test is done, and it goes through and it instantiates all the data providers. So yeah, should skip that. Color type, content entity storage, node. Okay, that should be this first part. Now we should get to the second. Method call, name create, but we have the right color type. All right, now, okay. Now we're here. Node storage, method reflection. Name is create. If the caller type is not of entity storage interface, we return the default variant. So let's look at the method call. Name, attributes. Next is argument, parent is method call. Attributes. Where's the PHPDoc? It should have it. Oh, the method reflection would have the so function variant, return type, entity interface. Why isn't it dummy parameter, array type, mix? Why is it not picking from the stub file? So mutating scope, let's see. Closure, return type, this type, node name, node identifier, create, variables, dynamic return time extension, it is supported, and that brings us back to here. Actually, I think I'm going about this the wrong way. Let's try something else. So we have the entity data repository. Let's try removing all these extra stubs that I just spent time creating. And what we need so that's going to fail. Entity dynamic return type test, which is actually testing this. Well, parts of this. So caller type. So what we need to do here, if caller type, if we don't have entity storage, we need to suggested storage equals. We need to see if maybe it's known to anything mapped, but then that doesn't work either. Well, it solves the one problem. I guess maybe that will is this get, let's see, resolve from storage. Say caller type. So if it's not an instance of object type or any storage type, we can say if caller type, it's a object type. Let's do stop equals null. And I don't know if this is going to be the right fix either. So let's debug. All right, let's run. Debug 17. I don't know why the stubs aren't working. So caller type, this is now getting back into the same territory as the original pull request. But I think there could be a cleaner way to do this. Let's go look at this original pull request. So get query, this does get return type for query method. And this entity helper, it would create it would basically check the object type and return the unknown entity type. But my idea is we load any type, entity class type, type. This get from caller type. What am I trying to do here? Let's just do this. This any type resolve from storage. So resolve from storage the caller type. So let's go ahead and create this method. And method caller type. This has to be an object type. So get this entity data. If is not set, it constructs the entity data from the mapping. So let's go ahead and return entity data as null. Turn null. But let's step into this. So the idea is that if we know we have a storage class, we can try to fetch it from the known entity data and then return that entity type information. Otherwise, we just fall back to the unknown. So resolved entity type, this entity data, nothing, there's the entity mapping. So what we can do is we'll do for each this entity data as entity type ID, entity data. Oh, this is going to be kind of a mess. Storage, is anything in here? Okay. Storage. Technically, things wouldn't have a storage all the time. Oh, shoot. And this was built to be lazy loaded. So that way we're more performant. But let's see. Extension neon. Yeah, everything here has content entity null storage. Well, that doesn't seem right, does it? So it does. Interesting. But right here, this is technically not needed. So entity data, this gets storage type. If class name is equal to null, we automatically resolve that. I feel like I don't want to do this up front, but I feel like we have to. We can't lazy load this anymore because it makes it too hard to get the default storage if it's not specified. So we will have to do not to set any data. So I have to do array map static function of array. Oh no, not this entity mapping. Hold on. Entity map, we'd have to do this entity data equals array map. I really don't like doing this, but I don't know any other way. Shoot. We can't even use an array map because we have array keys. Correct? Yeah. So we have to do for each this entity mapping for each as entity type ID, type ID, data, this entity data, entity type ID equals this entity mapping. Just do entity mapping. Oh, duh. This would just be entity data then. So what we can do is now this is like a cache miss. Like if there's not an entry, we create one. So let's see. Private entity mapping. This is only written but never read. So let's get rid of this. Again, I don't like this part of it, but we only call it during the... It only gets set in the bootstrap, I believe. This get, where do we construct this thing? Oh, it's constructed by the service container. Again, that's a heavy construct, but deal with it for now. So this entity data, debug, let's kick back off the debugging. All right, so object type, we have a class name. So let's do, we can do for each this. What theme am I rocking here? I picked up the, oh, what theme is this? Appearance. I grabbed the dark purple theme. Because I was using a light theme for a while. And then I grabbed this one here. I'll link it in the chat. I wasn't like the main dark one. And then this just kind of, I liked it. That's what I've been sticking with for a while now. Spaghetti light, and we call it, yeah. Like it was, I had the normal dark theme for a while, but then it just, dark themes were hurting my eyes. So I've always used light stuff, but then this just worked. Each entity data as entity data, we'll say. This is the part that I'm not gonna like. Storage, entity data, get storage type. Is this return nullable? Yes, it can. Which do storage type. Any storage type. So if storage type, we can do, let's do if storage type and storage type. This is where I get logic screwed up in my head. We want caller type is super of the storage type. No. Shoot, this could be a problem because it could go both ways. because it could be a lesser than check. Hold on. Well, let's just start here. Return storage type. So we just have an early exit return. Let's go ahead and rerun this. Put a breakpoint at storage type. What was the... I think I was pretty vanilla in the fact that it was either the built-in IntelliJ Lite or maybe it was the Mac OS Lite. Oh, I was using Dracula before. That's what I was using. I tried the Twitch Dark because it had a lot of purples, but it was just the contrast was so bad. It just did not work. No test executed. Well, that's means something crashed. Yeah, so I had the Mac OS Lite, I think, and then I tried the Twitch and Dracula. The Dracula, I just got sick of like all that dark, and the Twitch purple was cool, but it was just not. What do you want to say? It was not. It didn't have enough contrast. So storage type. If storage type and is super of, caller type is node storage. Yes, we need a yes in there because it's trinary logic. So the problem is if somebody type hints at node interface, which we have the data here for this at least. So, right, entity storage, node storage, and we should probably do node storage interface. I didn't kill this breakpoint. So you can get rid of that breakpoint. Okay, storage type is node. All right, because it's an instance of. So if we step over T, type error, result from storage must implement we have type entity data. Oh, dang it, that's why. Or no. Okay, so I have this wrong. Result from storage type, let's return entity data. That's right. We don't want to resolve this as storage type. We want to resolve the entity data from the storage type. Resolved entity type. Let's do first off. I think we can do a quick return. If it's not an instance of object type, we're safe there. That should be known. And then we can say if resolved entity type, we return. So if we couldn't resolve an entity type, we do there. And we can have this is the hard part. Type is null. I guess we have to do an else. So else type equals resolved entity type get class type. That should do it. Let's run the test. And I hope it gets somewhere because this finally has been driving me insane on how to balance all this magic in this extension. And this is definitely going to be one. I'm not going to merge it. I'm going to push it up. I need to review it some more. So the tests are also like just feel messy. All right. We got passing tests. Hallelujah. Let's run the entire test suite quick locally because it should be okay. Or should be somewhat fast. This is accessible. Oh, that's from over there. Instantiating the test. I just don't want to. My fear is I don't want to like add more to the bootstrapping of the project. Unwind exit. Do I not have everything set up right for the browser test? Yeah. Let's commit this. Actually, I'm gonna let the CI do the job. Or hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna let the CI do the job. Drupal throws an error if you don't have Prophecy PHP spec or the PHP spec Prophecy PHP unit bridge, and I don't have that added because right now PHP Stand Drupal supports Drupal 8, Drupal 9, and Drupal 10. In that trait requirement, that trait package is required for part of Drupal 9. So I don't want to make it a hard dependency here. Although I could, and I guess it doesn't really matter. But another time. All right, entity data repository refactored to always construct the known entity data, the return type extension. This is refactored a lot to handle the query up front. Yeah, so if, hold on, this doesn't read right. That doesn't read right at all. Yeah, so if it's an instance of a query, or if we're handling the get query method, which I feel like this means this needs to be broken up even more to entity storage get query and not have dynamic return type extension in the name because it's just too long. So we have the query, and if we don't have the entity storage type, we try to look it up, and if we can't look it up, we return the defaults, which allows us to handle load unchanged, load multiple, and return to the default type. Actually, this is if method reflection, get name. I want to be more verbose with it. And otherwise, we return. All right. Now, let's just push this up and review the overall changes. Allow resolving entity type based on type hinted storage. Let's do a push. All right, pushed. Now let's see what madness we have going on. So source, the entity repository, completely refactored. To initialize the entity data on construct. Again, I'm not a fan of that, but it makes this resolve from storage possible. As eventually we need to resolve all of them anyways, so we may as well do it up front. Entity storage dynamic return. This is highly refactored and impossible to read. That's a bummer. The type test, though, we're adding test data for this pull request specifically. Entity query, we're doing it for the entity query as well. So this test, type storage, another type storage with instance of. That one I want to fix. I want to change that. 355 entity query, which is being run here. All right. So this another should actually be done this way. Because instance of seems fine. So interface. Let's cut this out. Actually, hold on. let's copy this out first. So I do have a plan here. So let's cut this out. Another type storage is typed on the interface. Because people should be, when they do the VerDoc like this, they should be typing against the interface, not the concrete class. And we'll rename this one to be, let's rename this. Instance of node storage. All right, so we'll rename that to be instance of node storage. Let's run this test. That makes me feel like we then have coverage of type hinting it as the concrete class and as the interface, which makes sure that I didn't get all backwards in this logic here. That the caller is a super type of the storage type, which means that storage type implements the caller type or is the same thing as it. Like they're the same parent. And that passed. So I'm okay with that being added there. What is this doing? Query execute. Let's get rid of that change just to remove all the bug 355 entity storage. No, entity query execute. Added a space there. Whatever. That's not the end of the world. No, let's leave it. So node storage, taxonomy storage interface. Great, that covers that. Same concept. Tests are failing. Why are the tests failing? It's PHP stand. Cannot call methods, get storage type on, entity type null. This entity data. Oh, well, now it's no longer null because it's always set. So let's do a PHP vendor bin, PHP stand. Make sure it passes. Woohoo! All right, entity repository line 39. If storage type, only booleans are allowed, is not equal to null. Okay, so we're being specific. And 93. If it's equal to null. All right, that passed. Get status, get add source, get add test. I'm going to amend my last commit. Git amend. Git push F. And let's refresh. And see what happens. I'm going to give stubs didn't work. I don't know what was happening, but stubbing create on node storage or node storage interface did nothing. Also, I realized that stubbing entity queries, entity query would be impossible. I've updated the code to allow resolving an entity type based off of the storage class. So if the the storage variable is type hinted correctly and the entity mapping is set up, we can resolve the correct entity data. All right, Grammarly, what did I do wrong here? Submit entity query objects would be impossible based on the storage type. Type hinted at correctly? No, just correctly. Let's comment, and everything passed. All right, let's mark this ready for review. And see if anything should be broken out into its own issue. Because this is big, and I always like to try to chunk things up a bit. Like here, this is impossible to read. I'm gonna make a note. This is impossible to grok from the diff. All I did was move get query above the check for the entity type class, because we don't really care about the entity type class if we have an object type that is a super of, is a object type that can be, if we have an object type that's a storage class, then we can determine the kind of storage it is, the kind of storage it is, which does not, what kind of, we can determine what kind of query will be executed, which does not require knowing the entity type class. I'm thinking we should do this in its own PR. So make a entity storage, another entity storage dynamic return Drupal static get query extension. This is one that requires passing in the entity type ID, so we're okay there. I think. Right, entity query, entity count type, entity query dynamic. So yeah, count execute, count execute. If it's an entity count query, deal with that another day. So I think we should make entity storage get query to just handle this get query method, since we do not require the entity type class. Then this extension only handles methods which return a single instance or array of the entity type class. Okay, I think that's one fix to help clean this up and this whole mess. This is the new trick for resolving the entity type this should stay in this PR, I believe, as it is specifically used for resolving from var or assert foo instance of. Actually, I have no idea if that assert instance of, but it's just PHPDocs. Get started a review for myself, but I'll just do single comments. Sorry for the email spam. Yeah, so then if the type is null, we bail out after all that. And yeah, create. Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a note. I added this to be more explicit. I know we restrict what method names are handled, but it felt weird just dangling the entity class as the return type. Yeah. There. The test, I should have just done a review, so that way it was less annoying of a process there. All right, I did not get this done, but I'm at time, but I feel a lot better about it now. So hopefully next week I'll be able to just wrap this up so I can get a release out. Actually, let's check that real quick. How many have I merged anything since the last release? 6 days ago. There are no items pending. So great, did the release. Don't need to worry about anything missing. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. And again, I'll be back on Wednesday next week, 2 p.m. Central Daylight Savings Time, working on PHP Sand Drupal. Have a good one.